Right. Well, welcome to Storytime number 72. For every story for 2024. What does number 72 mean? 72
No, I
is
need to just
a
my
multiple of
video
12.
screen.
So this
Oh
is
yeah, it's 6 years.
completion of 6 years of Storytime.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
I am slightly embarrassed slash slightly proud to say that the fourth year is nearly typed up. I was hoping I'd be able to say it is done, and lovely people who've offered to proofread may do so. It's not quite ready. I didn't quite make it before I had to start writing today's story, but it will be ready soon. And then I'm going to go straight on to typing up the fifth year rather than doing much in the way of illustration, so that hopefully I do have a few people proofreading. I can get all the art done while that's happening, and then we'll have both those books. And then I will carry straight on into year six and hopefully not be so behind in the future. But we'll see how we go.
Yes, indeed.
But yes, for our story time number 72, our sort of dress up and show and tell topics were number one, when you have to answer the door in an interesting state, hence my glad wrap head, because the state I have had to answer the door in is in the middle of dyeing my hair with it covered up in glad wrap and towel on and all of that. And there are a few others in amongst it. Let's have a look at the beautiful Irish dancing costume.
This is a costume I was making for Sarah. I made 3 identical costumes, one for a friend of hers who's about at least twice her size. And for that one, Barry put it on with 2 jumpers underneath. And one, her friend, similar build to her, I could put on with about 3 bras underneath to kind of pad myself out a little bit. And then there's this one of Sarah's, which I could put on if I held my breath and didn't eat too much for breakfast before I made the costume.
Very good. Did you indeed ever have to answer the door?
Indeed, I did, yes. Yeah. Usually with like a bit of lace or something hanging out or pins and things. So you'd be like, thank you very much, and you'd be trying not to have the pins spear into your underarm or something like that.
That one will be very familiar in the story. What's Dad got? Have you got your dressing gown?
He's got a dressing gown, anybody's dressing gown, not his own.
Not his own dressing.
Someone's dressing gown, so that you've got something on.
I don't know where this one came from.
You've stolen it from someone who stayed with you or something.
Someone's left it behind.
Yes. It's very sophisticated. It's a bit Sherlock Holmesy, I think.
And Andrew, I think, has a dressing gown too.
Yes.
Oh yeah, but hold on.
With your name and everything. Oh, well, the postie wouldn't have any trouble checking that right person parcel. So our other kind of show and tell topic was sort of non-standard size things in your house, which is why I've got the giant who gives a crap box. I guess because this is just a very big thing that's not standard size that you can fit in.
No. So you order your online toilet rolls, which are made of bamboo and so on. So it's all very ecological, and plus you don't have to get nasty plastic things from the supermarket in your trolley and have the embarrassment of carrying them home and things, because they come to your door, which is great, and they last for I don't know how long. We can't subscribe because we're not sure how long 40 toilet rolls last, but next year I'm thinking I might build a Christmas tree out of toilet rolls.
I've seen that done with them before, actually.
But we don't just have 1,000 cupboards that a box of that size just slips easily.
Like maybe in the wardrobe.
No,
certainly not in the bathroom.
It has to go underneath where the cat used to get in.
I didn't bring ours. Our main one is plugs. We seem to never have a sink in our house with a standard size plug hole that we can use a generic plug in, and they frequently don't have, like, they're meant to have a press pop, one of those pop up, pop down press ones, and they never actually put it on. So, so it's always we have to get something so that Lloyd can fill up the sink to shave, or I can like wash my face in it or whatever. And so we get like some generic rubber plugs, and they're like 5 different sizes, which is what I could have brought to show you, the 5 different sizes of plugs, none of which actually quite
nothing at all.
But yes. And the last sort of show and tell one, which we've got a few really nice photos have come in, so I will put a little slideshow into the recording when I edit it, which is adults on kids' play equipment or playing with kids' toys. So this morning I've had a fun time getting all the toy rabbits out and pretending I'm doing a little rabbit committee meeting. And there's a great picture of Dad on the tricycle and Mum on the swing. And
I've got a lovely photo of Lloyd, Barry, and Mark Fletcher all playing with, was it a car or train set?
Oh,
setting up.
what's that called? Yeah, the little
Back a few
electric
years.
car thing.
That was
They
really
go around the
funny.
track. It has a
Wow,
special
Scale
name.
Electric?
Scale Electric.
Skeletrix, yeah.
Skeletric.
The Skeletrix set. Yeah, they found Lloyd's Skeletrix set in the shed, and they were trying to all get it going in the living room. Yes, that would
I
be
have a photo that I did not dig out for this because I always only ever check the themes on the day of. But I work in a school, and we had like a Pro D day where the kids weren't there, and we'd sat in, you know what Pro D lectures can be like a whole morning of just being talked at. So like by lunchtime I was like, I understand why the kids just go outside and run and run and run. So I went out, I was like, they're not here, my turn. And I went outside and I climbed to the top of the spider web climbing frame that I normally can't go on because there are children.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Those are great. I like those things. The sort of webby climbing things.
Yeah, they're fabulous.
So remaining topics, we had a character request for Betty. So we've got Betty today. We had 10-pin bowling. Not really my birthday. Rocking chairs. To the rescue. On-stage mishaps. Body differences, as in if you've got unusually short arms or something compared to sort of the average person, and the wrong glasses.
Oh,
Hello.
So today's little poem is called The Birthday Game, and it's about that idea of not really my birthday, and also getting into things that are sort of considered to be kids' activities as an adult. Because it was my birthday, I was allowed on the swings, tumbling and rolling down the giant slippery slide and the grassy slope that stained my skin green. I got chocolate cake with rainbow ice cream, and the ice cream was free. And I took my teddy bear with the big birthday badge on the bus heading down to the shops for everyone to see. I got lots of happy birthdays and some flowers and a balloon with birthday string. In the shops, there was free mocha and lots of tastings of cheese. I went home with a cake and a fun, sparkly, slinky spring. I sat Teddy at the table. I didn't stick my birthday banner on the wall. I enjoyed my cake for dinner, but I had a secret. It wasn't really my birthday at all.
Naughty.
Today's story is called Betty and the Unbirthday Chairs. Betty waited at the bench on the walking trail that overlooked the playground. Today she was attired in an unusual mixture of twinset and vampire cloak because her sensible beige coat was at the dry cleaners. She'd put her fangs in just to even things out a bit. Betty was waiting for her granddaughter, Anae. Not to go on the playground because Anae thought herself too old for such activities, but for a walk through the forested section of the trail to the duck pond, where Betty's Instagram famous paper crane, Carrie, would be going for a swim. Anae was late, however. Betty found herself eyeing the swings with a kind of wistful jealousy, as a younger adult who had a suitably playground-aged child with them sat on the swing next to theirs and started a contest to see who could swing the highest. The adult was definitely not swinging the highest they could, but they were enjoying the sensation of seeming to leave gravity behind as much as the child was, a grin spreading over their face each time the swing reached the peak of its pendulum movement. Presently, the child started wailing about something, and the adult got off the swing and escorted them away from the playground. Betty looked up and down the walking trail. It seemed to be quiet this morning, and once the parent and child disappeared in the direction of a nearby cafe, the playground area was deserted. Betty tugged her walking frame towards her, hefted herself up from the bench, and made for the playground. There was a low fence around it with a child-proof gate, which proved Betty-proof for a minute or so, but she eventually worked it out. Pushing the walking frame with difficulty through the bark chips that lined the ground below the play equipment, Betty headed for the swings. She considered them. The swing seat intended for a very small child seemed a safer option, having a back which would not allow her to tip off backwards. Betty manoeuvred her walking frame close, took hold of the chain of the swing, and eased herself into the seat. It was a tight fit, but she felt confident she wouldn't fall out, which seemed more important. Nudging the walking frame out of the way with her toe, Betty began to swing back and forth. The mild morning air whizzed by with a thickness like water, and Betty relaxed into the sensation as though it was a dream, listening to the quiet murmurs of birdsong and distant voices. It was only after several minutes of swinging that a few practical concerns occurred to her. First, that she had pushed away her walking frame, and it was now out of reach for when she wanted to get off the swing. Second, she wasn't entirely sure her bottom would come out of the child-sized seat, which was wedging itself more and more firmly around her as she swung higher. Her mobile phone, and Carrie the paper crane, with whom it would be a great moment to get a selfie, were inside the basket that hung below the walking frame seat, and therefore also out of reach. Betty decided that for now, the best solution was to enjoy the swing and not worry. She would just have to hope that Anae came to her rescue before any actual child-sized people wanted to take her place. Just as Betty was starting to feel a little bit worried that Anae might have forgotten their arrangement and not be coming, Anae's bright purple coat and defiant gait appeared from the direction of the cafe. She put her hands on her hips when she saw Betty on the swing. "Grandma!" She hurried through the playground gate, the child-proof latch giving her no trouble despite her being much closer to child age than Betty was. "You're on the playground. That's a bit embarrassing." She had a look in her eye, though, that suggested she was really rather interested in swinging too. "I like swings," Betty replied, slowly coming to a stop. "But I think I may be stuck on this one. Can you rescue me, please?" And they brought Betty's walking frame back within reach and then went around behind her to help prise the swing seat away from Betty's bottom as she stood up. Then she looked at Betty as though she was about to impart a great secret. "There's no one around," she murmured. "Do you think we could go on the Flying Fox before we leave?" Betty didn't like the Flying Fox as much as the swings. Whilst it gave the same sort of flying sensation, Betty felt gravity was much more apparent in the fact that her arms felt like they were going to come off. Anae had to run up and down after Betty to place the walking frame where she could rest her feet on it, as she kept sliding back away from the platforms at either end and getting stuck hanging in the middle. Eventually, Ine had to push Betty along to return her to the one end where she could get down. They did get some great carry the paper crane photos, though, and one Betty had to admit was amusing of her, making a kind of wah face and showing her fangs. You know what's a bit like playground equipment for grown-ups, she said to Ine as they made their slow way back to the gate. Rocking chairs. I'd like a rocking chair. I don't know why I haven't got one. Old ladies are supposed to have rocking chairs. Replied Ine. That does seem like a grandma thing. I saw some at that new woodworking shop that opened in the art shed. They're quite expensive, though. My choir friends might all contribute towards one, mused Betty. Ine raised a skeptical Ine eyebrow. Would they? Replied Betty. I'll say it's my birthday soon. But it's not your birthday for another 4 months, Grandma.
Yeah, so what?
They don't need to know that, Betty told her in a conspiratorial whisper. On Monday, after choir practice, a group of the members of Sea Cats, the community choir for adult Tearsview singers, went to the new carpentry shop to look at expensive handmade rocking chairs for Betty. Bob, who was Betty's good friend and neighbour of some years, had looked a bit amused when Betty announced her upcoming birthday and wished for a rocking chair. But she didn't give away Betty's fib. Instead, she came along and tried out rocking chairs with all Betty's best choir friends. It didn't take long for the whole group to be sitting in the chairs, some of them settling back and falling asleep after their rigorous practice for the upcoming local fair. Among those still awake were Betty, Barb, and a newish, younger choir member named Izzy. Izzy and Barb were far from sleepy due to having an excited discussion about a local musical theatre production for which they intended to audition. Will you give it a go, Betty? Asked Izzy with bright enthusiasm. Betty had been rather hoping to join the ranks of those taking a nap and was not really in the mood to consider her answer. However, it had in the past few years become Betty's policy to always try new things when given the chance. And given that she acted as a vampire for her LARPing group and frequently got solos in the choir, she felt playing a role in a musical might suit her rather well. Perhaps, she told her friends. What's the show about? Izzy explained that it was a sort of modern-day Alice in Wonderland and suggested that Betty might be good at playing a mysterious elderly figure who appeared throughout the show to offer the main character advice that might or might not be trustworthy. Betty rather liked the sound of this. I'll definitely think about it, she told them. By the following week's choir practice, Betty's birthday fib had got rather out of hand. Aided by Barb, who thought it rather amusing to perpetuate the story and try to make Betty feel guilty, Barb, along with a small group of other choir members, had organised to take Betty out 10-pin bowling after practice. When the group arrived at the bowling alley, a staff member asked which member of the group was the birthday person, gave Betty a birthday badge to wear, and provided her with coupons for free food and drink. They also wanted to sign her up for a loyalty card and asked her for the date of birth for the account details. Betty had a brief moment of embarrassment, but then she remembered that having a different birthday recorded here would mean free stuff at the bowling alley on a different day of the year to everywhere else, which sounded pretty good. She gave a date the following week and got a stamp on her new loyalty card. Once the group actually started bowling, Betty wasn't sure she needed a loyalty card for here, as bowling did not seem to be her forte. It seemed that Betty had unusually thick fingers for her strength. The bowling balls she could lift, she could not get her fingers into, and the ones she could fit her hands in, she could barely move. When she thought she'd finally found a bowl that suited her, Betty went to bowl it, only to find that she could not release it. Her fingers were stuck in the holes. "Oh, blast," she muttered, trying to wiggle her fingers free. After every other choir member present had attempted to help her, a staff member came to the rescue with a tub of Vaseline and brought Betty a medium weight ball, which fit her fingers rather better, but which she could only just swing enough to drop it into the lane. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending how you viewed it, this was the point at which Betty realised she could not see how she did with each shot, because she'd packed her reading glasses instead of her long-distance ones. She suspected that the white pins in the distance blurring into a blob probably made very little difference to her score anyway. 1 week later, Betty got a text message from a courier announcing that her rocking chair was to be delivered that day. Betty waited excitedly for its arrival, looking forward to being able to stop the birthday masquerade for the year. She was sure, however, that the rocking chair would be worth it. The courier took a picture of the large box in front of Betty's door, with her standing in the background in full LARPing costume, ready to go out later. "Where do you want it?" he asked, taking in the fact that Betty probably couldn't carry the box on her own. "Just in here," Betty replied, going to lead the way into her living room. There was a thud as the courier tried to follow, and the box collided with Betty's doorframe. "Oops!" The courier backed up and tried again. Thud! The box hit the other side of the doorframe. "That's weird," the courier muttered. "The boxes are standard sizes, designed to fit through all doorways." Betty sighed. "Not much about this house is standard sized, I'm afraid. Never mind. Bring it around the side gate and it can go in the back door instead." The courier put the box back on its trolley and pulled it across to the side gate while Betty went round to open it. When the trolley was pushed into the opening of the gate, however, there was another thud as the top of the box hit the cross strut that ran overhead at just over Betty height. The courier took the box off the trolley and tried sliding it through on the ground instead, but then it hit the side of the gate much as it had the door frame. Betty looked on in slight amusement at first, but the amusement faded more and more as she took up more and more of the courier's time, and eventually a friendly neighbour saw their continued struggles through their window and came to the rescue with tools to remove the overhead crosspiece from the gate. Once the rocking chair was finally set up in the living room, Betty put the wedge-shaped door snake against the door between there and the kitchen. This door had always hung on a slight angle, such that one side was much higher off the floor than the other, and thus had required Betty's sewing skills to design a special shaped door snake to keep out drafts. The door sorted, Betty made herself a cup of tea. Then she got her blanket and her knitting and sat in her new chair, looking very much how people expect old ladies to look, apart from the false fangs, which appeared every now and again over her bottom lip as she concentrated on her stitches. Betty had, in the end, decided to audition for the musical and had been given the part Izzy had recommended for her. So it was that she spent many of her nights in the following 3 months at rehearsals. Meanwhile, Barb, who was feeling rather cheeky about Betty's fib to the choir, put it about among the cast that it was Betty's birthday this month, and she especially wanted a rocking chair. Barb's tall tales were not very high on Betty's list of worries at the rehearsal, though. First on the list was which glasses to wear. If she wore her distance lenses, Betty could see the director, who liked to sit out in the auditorium of the small community theatre and talk to the cast over a small PA system. However, she could not see her script or music. If she wore her reading glasses, she had the reverse problem and would find herself squinting out at the director with unpleasant expressions as she did her best to read the director's face. In neither pair could she see properly in the middle distance, where assorted props tended to be positioned. When people around her uttered words like multifocals, Betty pretended not to hear. She felt that the last thing she needed was another pair of glasses to lose track of. Sometimes Betty lost track of which glasses she was wearing and why. One evening, she made her way on stage, watching the director, who was giving directions for how to interact with newly finished items of the set. Betty was to sit down next to the main character at a bus stop and say a series of mysterious but sage things, a part of the show that Betty liked very much. The bus stop set piece was newly assembled, made of lightweight cardboard. Betty and the main character were to sit in specific spots where there were stools positioned underneath the cardboard facade of the bench. This all made sense in theory, except that Betty had on the wrong glasses for making such judgments. In fact, she did not own a suitable pair for the middle distance task of locating the stool hidden under the false seat. She did her best and sat so that there were even gaps between each of the actors and the sides of the bus shelter prop. Soft cardboard buckled under her weight, tugging at the stool to which it was attached and tipping it over. This in turn pulled on the cardboard roof of the bus shelter, and soon Betty and the other actor were sitting in a kind of box fort on the stage. Betty pushed the cardboard out of their faces so that their heads stuck out, and she and her scene partner finished the dialogue as though this was supposed to have happened. The other cast members then had to come to their rescue to help them both out of the box fort, which was, for something made of cardboard, really rather impenetrable. Betty's other main problem with the production was the one-size-fits-all jumpsuits, which everyone was supposed to wear in the finale, and to which playing cards would be attached for the chorus scenes. The one size absolutely did not fit Betty. Apparently, she had a very short torso, so the jumpsuit hung baggy below her chest, and when a playing card was attached, it dropped down far lower than everyone else's and dragged on the floor. Betty offered to do her own alterations and took this costume home. This, with pins holding up the new waistline and her hair wrapped in glad wrap while she dyed it, were what Betty was wearing when there was a knock at the door one afternoon.
Oh.
She went and opened it despite her attire, which earned her a slightly concerned, slightly intrigued look from the courier who stood there. In front of him was a chair-sized box. Betty called the neighbour to take the overhead rail off her side gate and encouraged the courier to bring the box round to the back. Once in position, she opened it. It was, of course, a second rocking chair. Betty sat it next to her other one, thinking she and Barb might enjoy that for joint knitting sessions. On the opening night of the musical, two significant things happened. The first was that Betty's walking frame became ensnared in the stage curtain as she tried to walk on. A fellow cast member dashed to the rescue with a walking stick, and Betty went on stage and left the walking frame where it was. This was a good choice in a the show must go on acting sense. Unfortunately, it meant that a section of curtain on the right-hand side of the stage could not fully close all night, the wheels of the walking frame being tangled in the fabric and thread of the curtain. The small cast had to do all of their changing of sets and resetting behind the left-hand curtain, shifting to the centre only just in time for it to open. The The second thing that happened was that Barb told the cast it was Betty's birthday tonight.
Oh, no.
This resulted in them all singing her happy birthday in 4-part harmony in the green room. Betty tried to keep a straight face throughout, say thank you politely, and not show that she'd forgotten to take out her fangs. The director even included a birthday announcement for Betty in her closing speech to the audience. And they all applauded her an extra time. A few days later, Betty was in the shower when there was a knock at the door.
Oh, no.
She quickly hopped out, and in the absence of a dressing gown, assembled for herself a kind of towel toga held up by hair clips. She wiped shampoo off her forehead and went to the door. On the doorstep were several fellow members of the musical cast, and between them, an ornate rocking chair. Betty, who by now had no expectations of anything fitting through her non-standard width door, sent them straight around to the side gate. When they got inside, the cast members looked in surprise at the 2 other rocking chairs already present in Betty's living room. Why do you have so many? One of them asked as Betty poked and prodded the new one into the space. I have one for each of my birthdays, Betty replied. Were you born on a blue moon in a leap year or something? Asked another cast member, confused. No, replied Betty. I have one for each of the dates other people think are my birthday. It's really my birthday, you see. Her fellow cast members all looked at one another. But Sally announced it to the auditorium, one of them exclaimed. Betty shrugged. I doubt anyone in the audience really needs to know my birthday, she said.
Sure.
The room fell awkwardly silent for a moment. So, when is your real birthday? Someone asked eventually. Betty flashed them a fanged grin. Today, she replied. Can I offer you some cake?
Very good. Very good.
Gorgeous.
All right. Well, any requests for next time for Storytime's 6th birthday?
6th birthday.
Pretty much me.
Perhaps we could have a different New Year's story, like the Chinese New Year.
Yeah, like New Year traditions other than
Yeah,
our
that'd be
standard.
interesting.
There's
Yeah.
at least, I'm like, there's probably way more than this, but like there's definitely at least like 5 different New Years that I've come across, because there's like the Jewish one, the sort of January 1st international calendar one, Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year, and then parts of Southeast Asia have their New Year at a different time. So like Cambodian New Year, it's not New Year in Thailand or Cambodia right now, but it is in Vietnam. And then there's like a Persian New Year. So I think I worked it out once that like you could celebrate New Year every month for about like 5 or 6 months.
That's nice.
You could time your travel
You could.
such that
You could pass through, so you're always getting
yeah,
better
yeah,
New Years. Yeah.
that'd be fun.
I'm trying to think of things that come in 6s as well for like the 6th birthday.
Oh,
That's a nice idea.
I like the ridiculous concept. I know I've had it before, but it's the combination thing that makes it really hard. Not just the passwords, but
Yeah.
the username.
Oh, right. Yeah, like where
So, you know,
username
like
is not
you
just
get your username, but you've got the right password, but you're not
there
sure
is
if
the
that is
wrong
your username
combination.
on that website. And then you put the other one in and you try another password and it's still wrong. It's like
Yeah.
having, 59 possible combinations to get
Yes.
somewhere. And it's incredibly infuriating on a smart television.
No, yeah.
Why is that particularly bad? Do you have
Because
Yeah,
you have
because
to
you've got this
type with
little
the
thing where
remote
you
control.
you're using your remote control to get the letters up, like takes you
Okay.
15 minutes to write your name and your
Is
username
it
in.
kind of like when you use the way we used to have to text, where the letters were like
Yes.
press 3 times on
You
the
click through.
No,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like
screen
you've
to get.
got the. It's
Oh.
like you've got a keyboard and you have to scroll to it using the remote and select.
Yes.
Oh,
You have
yeah.
to click across,
Find it,
E,
press
down,
enter, get the next one. Yeah, it's infuriating.
And to me, a smart TV which has a USB connection, surely
Why can't
could
you
be
plug a keyboard
in.
in?
Plug a keyboard in.
It should be.
Yeah.
Maybe
I've
that can be
tried
a
several
theme for
times.
story time of like technology, like smart technology that is not that
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah.
Like today I was
That's
trying
it.
to buy something from a vending machine and I had to scan a QR code to pay because that's just really common over here. But like there were 3 vending machines in a line. One of them, the screen was cracked, so then the QR code was cracked, so my phone wouldn't scan it. One of them was just straight up not working, unresponsive touchscreen. One of them was in like blinding sunlight, so like the code was so bright and reflective that my phone couldn't work out that it was there. So it was like you knew these were gonna be outside. Like
Why did they? Yeah. Why did it not have a little shade over the top or
No.
something?
I just walked
Yeah.
to the next set of vending machines in the end.
Oh, well, I was going to say superstitions that definitely don't apply.
Yeah.
I think black
We
cats
should
are
add that.
lucky in
I do
British.
too.
I agree. I always found black cats the best, and I always loved them and felt pleased when I saw them. So I'm like, no, that superstition doesn't apply.
Back to
Neither does
front.
Neither does number 13.
No, but in
That's
UK
wrong.
superstitions, originally, I think they were originally lucky. Like I was taught growing up
Oh.
that black cats are good luck, and that it was an American superstition that they were bad luck.
Oh,
Although,
Interesting.
I mean, I imagine
well, that
it's
is to be ignored. Then.
common to dislike, black cats because, superstition, black people. In Cambodia, they
We used
think
to say
ghosts.
What was that, Alison?
it was specifically if a black cat crossed your path. So
That's
they
right.
used to say that if you're walking and a black cat crossed your path, then you'd have a year of good luck.
Yeah.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah.
I'd like to have musicians that can't keep time.
Musicians that can't keep time. Oh dear. All right.
I think that'd be a good one.
Well, joining on with that, you know how it's like, to be really good at something, you have to practice.
Yes.
My recent little joke is or join a group where everyone's just worse than you and then you feel like you're really good. So I had that recently.
That would be a good thing to put in a story, actually, giving each other the same gift.
Yeah.
Oh, and will there be cake?
Will there be cake? Of course there will be cake. Yes, cake is I
Oh,
mean we can have cake as a theme in even maybe.
Yes.
Can do something sort of a proliferation of cake in the story. But yes,
That's the
strongly
meat
encouraged to have your own cake for Storytime's birthday.
How about
and
6
we
different
usually
types of cake in the story?
6 different types of cake. Oh yes.
Oh, lovely.
Yes.
Nice.
The other thing, usually for birthday, we do some kind of extra game thing that kind of everybody can have a chance to join in a little bit, kind of get involved. We usually do encourage like character dress ups if you have a favorite character from past stories.
Yeah,
Like
Beth, I'm going to drop around some teeth.
You're going to drop around some teeth for Beth so she can do Betty
Find some teeth
with fangs. Yeah. I think last time's thing went quite well, where I kind of came up with a little scenario that all the characters were going to be in the same situation. And you're invited to write or act out or take pictures or somehow do what a character of your choice's reaction to that situation. for which Beth did a wonderful Betty on a camping
Fantastic. Betty.
video, which was really fun. And lots of other really good ones as well. So I might try and write some kind of setting to put them all in. Obviously, we've got our big character kind of database that says who was in what story.
It could all be at a Chinese New Year celebration or something.
They could be at some kind of New Year's celebration. Yeah, well, have to choose one for them. Or they could be at like a mixed, ongoing New Year's celebration. But maybe they're actually in the situation of trying to travel so that they go and celebrate New Year in a bunch of different places that do it at different times. That could get a bit complicated though. It'd be over a very long period of time. We don't really want things that are going to make you do more than, you know, a short paragraph of their point of view kind of thing. Well, see, now I feel under pressure to make 6 different kinds of cake and do like 6 different cupcakes instead of one big cake for the,
It's cupcakes. That'd be good.
yeah, but then I'm going to have leftover batter of all 6 types, aren't I?
No,
So
you have to make
just
Mix it up.
You have to
mix
make
it
a
up.
basic one and separate it and add bits of each.
start with like make a big base
Yeah.
and then spoon it out and add different things. Yeah, okay. I could do that.
You could do that.
I can do a strawberry and a chocolate and a lemon and a I don't know what else.
Or you could parcel out the 6 varieties, and you know you have to make a chocolate one. No, James
like as in
location.
delegate.
and I have delegate. That's my word.
See, maybe each of us is one of the different New Years that you're talking about because we're all in different locations.
I like that.
Vietnamese New Year.
So could we say, in terms of like our little scenario idea, is that actually every character's at a different New Year type of New Year of your choosing? So you pick a New Year's celebration for whoever it is. And
I could make grave errors without deep research.
well, it depends who you're being. I mean, you know, if you're a child character or one of the animal characters or something.
Yes.
Your animal New Year.
Animal Year.
Yeah, well, an animal.
Horses are all born on the 1st of
What do
July.
dogs think when it's the year of the dog and all the humans are?
I'd say,
Sounds like fun. Let's find out what date that is going to be. The 9th of March.
All right. Thank you, Sarah, for the fun
then.
story. That was great.
It's all right. Thank you for being here for the end of our 6th year, and next time we'll have a bit of a special one to celebrate the 6th birthday.
Lovely.
Good.
Bye, everybody.
That one